Hey guys, good morning. My name is Jason Flame, chairman of the Moorpark Chamber of Commerce, and we are back with another chamber chat today. It's been a little bit since our last one, but here we are. And let me introduce our guest. This is David Pollock. He is a fractional executive and CEO of Propulsive Executive Services, where he helps public, private, and nonprofit organizations grow, strengthen operations, and expand their community impact. Drawing on a unique career spanning business development, local government leadership, nonprofit management, and technology-driven strategy, David brings C-suite capacity to organizations that are too large to be run just by volunteers, but too small for a full-time executive. His current client list includes the Green Law Group LLP, California Arbitration Inc., and the Ventura Council of Governments. He also serves as CEO of the Moorpark Foundation for the Arts and the board of the Moorpark Chamber of Commerce. So, David, big resume here. I didn't cover everything. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things that we've done here in the community, but thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Of course, of course. So, give everybody a little bit more background about you, how long you've been in Moorpark. You've been on every committee and every elected position I think that we have to offer. So tell us a little bit more about your history here in Moorpark.
Yeah, I really need to learn to say no to more things. But you can identify because you're on everything also. So I kind of fell into this accidentally. Most of my career, I worked for big corporations. I worked for the Boeing company for 18 years at their Rocketdyne facility. I worked for an airline. I was a flight instructor. I was a child actor. I never could decide exactly what I wanted to do for a living, but I did about 14 years ago, started freelancing. First with a company that did solar panels for public schools across Southern California. And then I started picking up little pieces of work, sometimes pro bono, sometimes for pay, and it kind of grew from there. So a couple of years ago, I officially branded the company and incorporated, and Propulsive was actually my son's idea, to kind of harpen back to my time at the rocket factory. But nonetheless, what I'm doing is juggling a lot of different responsibilities in order to provide the kind of level of service and professionalism that small organizations might not otherwise have, because they were just too small to hire a full-time executive. So I'm a generalist by training and practice. So this was something that just fit neatly in what I do on a daily basis. And the trick in all of this is making sure that each of my clients feels like they're my only client. You have to be extremely organized to keep all those balls in the air at the same time and make sure you don't miss any deadlines.
Yeah, I was going to say, whenever people talk about, balance, it's never about balance. It's all about the juggling act and how good of a juggler you are. Now, you left out a couple things that I think are just kind of key to people getting to know you if they don't know you here in Moorpark, but you are also a member of our city council, and you also served on our school board. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I moved to Moorpark back in 1989. We had a growing family. We needed a bigger house. We were paying attention to the quality of the schools and communities. So Moorpark was a good fit. And it always seemed like, there's so much more potential here. And so I wanted to get involved, particularly with the schools as my children started attending there. So I got involved with public schools originally as chair of the school board's committee for effective schools. And I had just completed business school, and I thought, this would be a good test of my new set of skills. So I led a committee. The committee was active for about 14 months. There were 28 of us, I believe, on this, representing the administration, teachers, principals, parents, community members. It was a wide spectrum of the community. And we came up with a good set of recommendations that were adopted by the Board of Education and are still in existence today. Things like having open enrollment between the elementary schools, and, having the elementary schools specialize in different forms of instruction to, provide a genuine choice to parents. Things like that, I think made our schools special, and I was very proud of the work that I did there. I was on the school board for 15 years. I also got involved at the regional and the state level. I served as president of the California School Boards Association back in 2003, 2004. And so I was able to get to know schools on a much broader basis. And then I was stepping down from the school board. I had announced I wasn't going to run anymore, and I was approached by a group in the community that said, well, have you thought of running for city council? Not really. I was kind of looking forward to not having to run for anything. But it looked like a great challenge, and I'm glad I did that. I did that for 13 years. And I'm very proud of the progress that Moorpark has made during that time. And now I've been almost 3 years off the city council. I'm finally seeing the fruits of my labor in construction going on Princeton Avenue. Anyone who lives in Moorpark knows what that's all about. But that was forever my number one priority to get done, and it finally happened. Right after. In fact, one of the last things I did as a city council member was go to the groundbreaking for that project, and it's all done now, and it's beautiful, and it connects Moorpark from east to west.
And it all started out with just doing a little volunteering, right? So to all those people that are out there that are wondering,
that'd be a very slippery slope that you said.
Yep, I think my wife and I, like you said, kind of slipped into some of those things as well, and like you, having a hard time to say no. But we live in such an amazing community. It's such a close knit, family community. It's a great place to live, and so you want the best for your kids. You want the best for the future, and so you get involved. So I urge anybody watching this, if you take something away from this, get involved in your community, find a way or find something that you're passionate about, and don't be afraid to say no once in a while, but dive in there a little bit and start helping out. So let's talk a little bit more about what you're doing currently. You've worked across different sectors in government, nonprofits, law, and business. What's one lesson that's consistently true no matter what type of organization you're leading?
Well, it's funny. When I went to business school, business schools were being criticized for producing robots, people that were just great at crunching numbers and doing spreadsheets, not so good when it came to the softer skills, like dealing with humans, knowing more about organizational development, organizational theory, group dynamics, that kind of thing. So when I went through my MBA program, it was evenly balanced between technical courses and what we affectionately called the touchy-feely courses. And I won't say it's ironic, but since that time, I found that those touchy-feely courses provided a lot more insight to day-to-day operations and organizations, because they're organizations of people. It's what it comes down to, and you have to deal with people dynamics, and that's what has really made the difference for me, is understanding how to do that, not look at everything just as a technical problem, but you have to think about people's feelings and their goals and their dynamics. I've served on some boards where the dynamics were just horrible, and you have to fix that if you're going to move the organization forward.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to hear that. I love hearing that, actually, that it's not all about spreadsheets and numbers. It's about people. It's about, when you're in an organization, no matter how big or small, it's about the people that you work with and the people that you're serving. And when we can keep that at the forefront, we can use the numbers and the spreadsheets to help us kind of, strategize a little bit more. But again, the people are what count. Fractional leadership has become a powerful trend. How do you bring C-suite value to organizations and that may not be ready or able to hire a full-time executive?
What really kicked this into hyperspeed for me was the advent of AI. when I saw that come along, it's like, oh, this is great. And what if I have a weakness? It's that I try and do everything myself. I've learned to delegate when I have to, especially with contractors. But the idea that I could have virtual assistants was just very appealing to me. So I'm still learning my way through that, but by using that technology to assist me in extending my abilities much further and being able to accomplish many more things in a single day was very appealing to me. And I love technology to start with. So, and I've been hearing about AI for 50 years. I mean, it's not, the concept's not new, but the enabling technology just all of a sudden burst, and suddenly there's this avalanche of different possibilities. So that was kind of where I started taking on more clients and being able to effectively juggle those and extend my time to being able to do a lot more things.
Yeah. Well, we just finished the last question talking about how important it is, working with people and thinking about the people. And then we go to the next question. We talk about AI, and one of the biggest things that people are most fearful about AI is that it replaces people, or it replaces that human connection. And I think that if you allow it to, it can. But simple things like, you had mentioned organizing your calendar and sifting your email and helping give you a stronger checklist, things like that. Here's an example, right? I can sit and take a huge long division problem and do it by hand. We all learned how to do that in school. But I can pick up a calculator and I can punch it in, and I have it in just a few seconds. That's kind of what AI does, is it allows us to do things just a little bit quicker. And yeah, should we know kind of how to do that long division? Should we know how to have all of these skills? I think so, yes. But at the same time, if we can expedite some of these processes that just are time killers for us, and sometimes you don't need another person to do that work. I just need to do it a little bit faster. Does that make sense? And does that sound on par with what you were saying?
It's total sense. And I use that analogy a lot, because I lived through the era where handheld calculators became a thing, and people thought, oh, what are people going to do? I tell a story about that same time period too, where my kids were little and they got their first pair of shoes that had those Velcro straps on them. And I remember showing that to my grandmother, who looked at that with this look of disgust in her face. And she said, "That's the most ridiculous scene I've ever seen. How will they ever know how to tie their shoes?" That's, well, they still know how to tie their shoes. They learned that too. But when technology advances, it's better to embrace it. I think the people that suffer from the advancement of technology, so the ones that just can't deal with it and don't evolve along with the technology. I see endless opportunities when technology makes advancements. Some people see a threat. You can look at it either way.
Right. Well, I think it challenges us to do more and to do better, in other areas. So I agree completely. You're currently involved with groups like the Green Law Group and Ventura Council of Governments. Can you share a recent success story where your leadership made a measurable impact?
Yeah, I had to think about that for a while too, because again, doing so many things, you're doing it with groups of people, and it's usually the group that is the successful part. One thing I did when I came to the Green Law Group is I rebranded them, and they do construction and business law is their forte. And how do you picture that into a logo? And one of the things I do when I have creative issues like this is I use a service called oh goodness, I've been using it so long, Fiverr.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across this very talented artist in Italy, a graphic artist that came up with a series of logos. One of them was this. I don't know if you can see it. This is the the Green Law Group logo now, and it captures what they're all about. Being involved with construction issues and buildings, and business. So that made a difference in their digital presence online, and their image in the communities. Now people really understand what they're all about.
Yeah, and talking about your digital online presence and going back, talking about AI, I mean, how much smoother and I will say easier it is to have the use of AI technology to help you with your, taking that branding and then spreading your message and using online media to promote your business or businesses. It was one of the first things that I latched right onto, because I could sit there racking my brain thinking about what I wanted to write, how I wanted it to write, what I wanted it to look like, and I could have this assistance with AI to help me be able to provide that. Is there any other items of measurable impact with either of these companies or any of the other companies that you're working with?
Well, the impact of marketing the law firm was measurable, and I was tracking for years the increases in the number of clients that they were getting and intakes that they had. And there's another organization that's related to the law office, although they're separate. It's called Easy Law Construction Notices. And that was a case where that was a little bit more difficult. They had a great logo. They had a good presence online, but we redid their website and we started investing money in SEO. And that's always a leap in faith, because it really takes at least 6 months for you to start seeing any return on your investment, because it takes a while for the search engines to rank you higher and start ranking your keywords higher for people to start to notice.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of stumped me for a while until we realized that, well, we really need to be doing better on Google searches, and that's what we did, and it's starting to pay off.
Yeah, I can relate to that in the way that I remember rebranding our martial arts school. For 15 years plus, we were Tong Soo Do University, and then we changed to incorporate the name Moorpark in our business, Moorpark Karate and Krav Maga. And the website that we had was, the URL was TSDU Karate, and I wanted to kind of get everybody going to Moorpark Karate to make it a little simpler, because it was hard to remember what is TSDU, and but the time frame that it took to kind of switch things over, and luckily our online presence back then wasn't as good as it is now, just because we didn't use it as much. But then now making that switch over, it took a little while, but now I could almost probably never leave moreparkkarate.com and using all of those keywords for the SEO. So yeah, I totally understand that. Now, we talked a little bit about some of your successes. Let's talk a little bit about challenges. What are some common challenges you see in organizations that transition from being volunteer led to needing more professional structure, and how do you help them guide through that shift?
Yeah, and that's a tough one. Usually, when you have volunteers involved, you don't have as much accountability. Sometimes you luck out and you have a real core group of volunteers to just get everything done. And you and I know, in communities like Moorpark, there seems to be a core group of people that are involved in everything and make everything happen. Most people are busy with their own lives and really don't have the capacity to provide a lot of volunteer effort. So I guess it's not really hard to go in and say, well, hi, so I'm here to help organize things and drive your organization toward your goals that you set. That's not really hard, but it sometimes it's hard to get the volunteers to let go of certain things. It's sometimes you're walking on eggshells a little bit, saying, well, I know you've always done it this way, and good for you, but we need to kind of shift a little bit here to adjust to the realities of the modern world.
Yeah. Why do I feel like we're talking about the Moorpark Chamber of Commerce right now?
No.
No, I mean, we have an amazing group of volunteers, and we had an amazing CEO, and we've been in this process of working towards bringing in a new CEO, and so we know what that is. We know what that looks like with having volunteers, because like you said, the accountability is kind of hard to really hold people accountable when they're just a volunteer, but when it's their job and that's what they're paid to do, it takes on a whole new it's a whole new thing. It's a whole new ball game. So as CEO of the Moorpark Foundation for the Arts, what excites you most about the role and culture play in community development right now?
Well, so the theater itself is owned by the city, and when I started on the city council, that was kind of a controversial move. What does the city need to be involved in a little theater on High Street for? But some of us had a vision. I really should say a lot of us. We knew that the theater had its heyday back when it was doing melodrama productions, and was known far and wide all over Southern California. People would come to see those shows, but that kind of fell apart, and the theater fell into disrepair. It was brought back to life by a guy named Larry Jans, who people in the area know who he is, a developer. But he eventually sold it to the city, and the city had to figure out what to do. And the vision with it was that we know that theater can be a destination for Moorpark, that can draw people in from all over the place. How do we do that again? And it took a few years to build it up, but it's really has not only become a draw to High Street, it's become an anchor, and its success has inspired other people to make rather large investments on High Street. And combined that with the fact that we knew that we needed some denser housing in Moorpark, because we were quickly running out of land, and most of the residential construction had been for single family homes. So we started putting the denser home products around High Street, with the idea that getting people out of their cars and go walk over to High Street. And that's happening too, as you're seeing. There's a 79 unit mixed use building, or actually set of 4 buildings on High Street itself. And we have a 200 unit apartment building that's opening up just within a quarter mile of it. And then a whole other 755 unit development just to the west of it. It'll actually extend High Street to the west. That also will be within walking distance of High Street. So High Street is finally getting that life we knew that would always be there, and become the cultural center, not only of Moorpark, but for people all around. We've got a train station there. People can come from all over the place to enjoy the good food and the entertainment that we have right there on our little old High Street.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, it depends on who you talk to, because a lot of people are super excited about what's going on High Street, and there's a lot of people not so excited. And I think it's just one of those things where, the fear of unknown, seeing what it's actually going to be and become over the next, several months and years. But I love the fact that we have a theater down there that, that helps bring people to the restaurants, brings people to the shops. It would be nice to have some life where people are, walking High Street. Of course, we have Holiday on High Street coming up. We had Haunted High Street at Halloween. We're starting to have some really great events. We have the Arts Festival, I believe, coming back. Apricot Festival. Thank you. So lots of stuff right in the center, in the heart of our town. Now, I read something in the Moorpark Acorn, and maybe you can expand on this, but there is a proposal for another type of theater, another theater. Correct? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's another venue. So when I was on the city council, we bought a building over on Science Drive, which is closer to where Target is in Moorpark. And the idea, we had a civic center master plan where we're going to build a library and eventually a new city hall. But after the investment we made in what was to be the temporary city hall, we realized that, well, that may actually be a better location for people right off the freeway there to access city services. So maybe we won't execute on that whole civic center plan. We'll build the library, which is actually under construction, also on High Street. But what do we do with the rest of that campus now that we have an opportunity to rethink the use of that? And one of the reasons I got involved with the Arts Foundation, which runs the theater, was to kind of take it to the next level. The theater itself just celebrated its 95th birthday, so we're 5 years away from it being 100 years old. And there's probably some original structures behind the theater that we're asking our performers to use. So we know we have to do some upgrades to the existing theater, but even after we do that, it's still at capacity. Its calendar is full every year. We have over 90% attendance at the main stage productions that we do. So we're starting to think, well, there's a lot more potential here. What can we do? We don't want to knock down the historic theater and to rebuild it. It's just not practical to try and make it bigger. We looked at trying to do a balcony and the structure just won't handle that. So what we're looking at is a totally new venue on the old Civic Center site that would be an 800-seat theater. And by the way, the current theater is about 270 seats. So going to an 800-seat theater would bring in a whole new world of different kinds of entertainment. And we can attract some real world-class entertainment at a venue that large. And it would free up the High Street Theater for more community events when people are still clamoring for it. So it would free up the small theater and bring in a whole lot of, what am I looking for? Much bigger musical productions. It would bring in some talent for concerts, for example. Mm-hmm. So there's so many things that we could be doing with a larger venue. Now the trick is how to get there, because this would have to be a public-private venture, and that will be one of my challenges as president of the Arts Foundation, is raising the money to make that vision a reality.
Yeah, well, that's pretty exciting, and thanks for expanding on that a little bit. So looking forward to hearing how that progresses over the years. So before I ask the last couple of questions, which will be more related to the Chamber of Commerce and why you're a member and how you're involved, but is there anything that we didn't talk about with as far as Propulsive Executive Services that you wanted to mention or give information to the audience?
No, I think you framed it quite nicely. I joined an organization, a professional referral organization called Provisors. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yep.
But I remember one of the things when I first started there was that they had a little saying that the riches are in the niches, and I thought, well, darn, I'm here. I'm a generalist. How's that going to work? And then I discovered that actually being a generalist is a niche in itself. And you described it in the beginning, where there's organizations that are too big to be volunteer led and too small to have a full-time executive. And that turned out to be my niche.
Perfect. Cool. Well, I'm glad that we were able to cover that. If you guys have any questions, anybody watching this live or will watch this later, drop the comments, and David and I will check those comments later to answer any questions that you might have. But David, why is it important for you to be a member of the Moorpark Chamber of Commerce, and why did you choose to be a member?
Well, I chose to be a member for a number of reasons. One is my commitment to High Street. The High Street Theater and the Moorpark Foundation for the Arts are a big part of what's going on High Street. There's certain things that we need to do. We probably need to form a business investment district and do a lot more promoting of the the street as a destination. So, and I've watched the chamber grow and mature over the years, and the timing just seemed right to get involved with that, and help with all the upcoming projects that are integral to the other things that I'm doing.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you on our board and to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you for your trust in us and for your partnership with us, and look forward to many more things in the future. So really quick, just to remind everybody watching one more time, if you have any questions or comments, drop those on whichever platform you're watching. I'll be checking those and we'll get an answer to you if you have a specific question. But if you are a business owner and a member of the Moorpark Chamber of Commerce and you would like to have your own chamber chat, please contact Cody at the office at 805-529-0322. Or if you'd like more information about the Moorpark Chamber of Commerce, you can go to moorparkchamber.com. But we have one more event here in November. We have our upcoming networking breakfast, which will be next Friday at 8 a.m. at 95 at Lucky Fool's Pub. Please register and RSVP in advance, and we'd love to have you join us. And then we'll have more upcoming events coming up in December. So, David Pollock, thank you once again for being a guest on the show today, and thanks for being a member of our Chamber of Commerce.
My pleasure.
All right, well, have a great day. Try to stay dry, even though right now I think we're okay, but we'll see how the rest of the day goes.
For sure. And then thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations on all the great things that you're doing. You're showing what a dedicated group of volunteers can actually do.
Thank you. Well, what we can do, we can only do so little by ourselves, right? But we can do so much together. So I appreciate that, David. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next edition of the Chamber Chat with the Moorpark Chamber of Commerce. Have a great day. Bye-bye.